Hello, Tim from Fair Play Now on the 8th of April 2022. I just want to talk about a couple of things today. First of all, yesterday apparently the German Parliament voted down the German government's proposals to make the Big V mandatory for the over 60s, which is something they were wanting to do. And even that was a bit of a retreat on behalf of the German government. They really wanted to make it mandatory for everyone, for the whole adult population. But because of the massive amount of opposition to it, they kind of had to backpedal and say, all right, we'll just do it for the over 60s then. And even that yesterday was voted down by quite a substantial majority as well, sort of 80, I think the majority was about 80. So there is a lot of opposition to mandatory Big Vs there, and it's heartening to see that one of these corrupt governments has been defeated on this stuff. And that follows in the wake, of course, to what the Austrians had to do. They had to go back on their proposed mandatory Big Vs as well. So it's all good news. And I want to move on and talk about Matt Le Tissier a little bit. Now, I talked about him a little bit yesterday, touched on this story about how he was sacked from Southampton Football Club, or was forced to resign, whatever it was, because of his stance on, telling the truth, basically, is what it boils down to. But if you're from abroad or you're not into football, Matt Le Tissier was a top-flight footballer back in the kind of 1990s, early 2000s, I think it was. And he was a superb footballer. And he stayed loyal to Southampton Football Club, who aren't quite in the top flight. They're not quite up with the sort of likes of Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea and all that, but they're kind of a rung below that. And he could have quite easily played for one of those top flight clubs, but he stayed loyal to Southampton Football Club all of his career. So it's just a little bit of a pity that loyalty couldn't have been returned by Southampton Football Club, isn't it? But he has been very much on our side, questioning the narrative about the Lurgy and all the rest of it. And he was also questioning the narrative about the Ukraine-Russian thing, and that was what led to his, sort of being forced out of his role at Southampton Football Club. And I came across this story, again in this publication. I mentioned them a few days ago. It just goes by the name of the letter I. It's called I, and the story that they were running, and this story comes from a guy called Chris Stokell-Walker, and he goes on to sort of write Big Pharma and social media, how Matt Le Tissier fell into the conspiracy theory trap. And because this is a real hatchet job sort of against sort of Matt Le Tissier. And I won't read the whole article, but I'll just pick out a few salient points here. The former footballer resigned as ambassador of Southampton after he shared a post promoting the Russian line that the massacre in Bucha was media fabrication. And it then goes on to say, conspiracy theories have a pernicious effect on the brain. Like a parasite, they lodge in your mind and can replicate. making you more susceptible to believing other implausible ideas. Belief in conspiracies has become worryingly common. 13% of Britons believe in outlandish ideas. And this bloke then goes on to write about how Matt Le Tissier has fallen into this so-called trap. And yeah, as we go down here, this guy just keeps going on about, basically how, the likes of you and me, so-called conspiracy theorists, are somehow mentally deficient and have lost grip on reality. Let's just see if there's any other juicy things here. Down here, Le Tissier's unusual outbursts and dabbling with what most would deem conspiracy theories is an indication of how pervasive such thoughts have become, in large part because of social media. Since time immemorial, people have questioned official narratives of key events and incidents. However, they would often struggle to find like-minded people with whom they could swap notes. Now, though, that's made possible by the networking effects of social media and the ability to filter content into echo chambers that amplify and repeat back the same questionable comments. In a world without social media, Le Tissier would only be able to promote his beliefs through live events or on television, where his viewpoint would likely not be welcomed. Talk about stating the obvious. I should think it probably wouldn't be welcomed on the likes of the BBC. So what this guy is saying is that anyone who questions the narrative is a conspiracy theorist and somehow kind of fallen victim to some kind of mind virus, and that of course ties in with the whole, one of the favourite weapon of totalitarian regimes is to call anyone who speaks out against them as really being mentally ill or suffering from some sort of nervous breakdown, that kind of thing. Well, this person, he's the only one around who's, speaking out against the party, the dear leader, whoever it might be, whatever it might be. No one else is, therefore he is mentally ill. And that really does kind of smack of what this bloke is saying here. And I'm just going to give you the punchline of what I'm kind of building up to here, because you're not going to believe this. Because right at the bottom, you know how they give a little bit of a quick blurb about the writers of these sort of stories, some very quick bio or whatever. This one goes on to say, Chris Stoker-Walker is a technology journalist and author of TikTok Boom, China's Dynamite app, and the superpower race for social media. So he basically works for this TikTok Boom, which is owned by China, and therefore, bearing in mind that no Chinese entity can do anything without the say-so and the approval of the Chinese Communist Party, he essentially works for the CCP. And this is the guy who is calling Matt Le Tissier, basically inferring that he's mentally ill. So that just sort of links back to what I was saying, these totalitarian regimes, if you go against the narrative, you're mentally ill, aren't you? And it doesn't matter how much evidence you've got, what you're seeing with your own eyes and your own experience, what you've kind of heard from other people about certain events going on that leads you to question the narrative, and with a heck of a lot of justification. Oh, no, you are just a conspiracy theorist, you are sort of mentally deficient. So says this lackey for the CCP. So honestly, you couldn't make it up, could you? So with that kind of bit of ridiculousness to end the week with, I'm going to leave it. Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.